Hello and welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have an amazing guest, J.R. Greene. J.R. is the founder and chairman of Psychiatric Medical Care, the nation's largest behavioral healthcare management company with over 400 hospital and health system partners in more than 35 states. He hosts the podcast Super Fan Diaries and drew national attention as the big Orange Tux Guy when he led UT's football team onto the field for the 1998 national championship game. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome J.R. Greene.
Thanks so much. Great to be here, Courtney. Great to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
JR, I am thrilled to have you on the podcast. Truly love your energy and enthusiasm that you bring. And, we were just talking before, of course, this podcast speaks about just those life lessons along the way, sport experiences and career experiences. And what is so exciting is we are literally going to touch on each of those particular components today. And so I want to jump right into it. I'm so excited, JR. So if you could begin with an introduction and a background of yourself.
Well, real quick, it's sometimes when I start an introduction for people that know me, it just goes too long. But I'm J.R. Greene. I'm the founder of Psychiatric Medical Care, and I also host the new sports show Super Fan Diaries, and very excited about an upcoming book launch with the University of Tennessee called My Magic Tux. And it's been a long, wonderful journey to be able to ride at the seat I'm in right now that took place across, my goodness, all the way back at UT when I was only about 14 years old or 13 years old, selling programs at games and at New Kids on the Block concerts, all the way to college at TCU, business degree at Tennessee. Then I worked for Coca-Cola, Procter Gamble, the Revlon company, and then became the CEO and founder of Psychiatric Medical Care.
That is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for that introduction, JR. And I want to really focus. There's so many different areas where we could start this particular podcast episode. But I would love to dive into your leadership roles. You had just mentioned working at Coca-Cola, Procter Gamble, and Revlon. And so in these leadership roles, particularly in marketing. So my first question is, what made you go in that direction of marketing? And if you could just share with us maybe some lessons that you learned while in those leadership roles at those particular highly recognizable brands and companies.
You bet. Well, to start, how I got into marketing, if you want to go all the way back, I think you got to go back to childhood when I was given an opportunity to be a program salesman. That's right, the guy who sells from the little stand called programs at Tennessee basketball games. And I had a big old pair of glasses, sometimes a headgear, but it didn't stop me. I'd get out there and I'd be like, programs, get your programs, and at every game. And I think what drew me to marketing and sales is I loved that job. I had my little apron on where I put my money. I got 10% of everything I sold. So you start right there in sales. And I was able to start out in the worst position within the arena, Thompson Bowling Arena. And then over time, I was able to prove myself as a good salesperson, good marketing, figuring out how to sell the most programs of any of the salespeople. And by the age of 14, college, I think I may have resigned at about age of 15, had to go work for Eddie Bauer or something in the mall. But while I was doing the programs, I just gained that passion of selling the programs, figuring out how to motivate people to want to actually pay $20 or $30. I even remember the first time that probably hooked me was New Kids on the Block concert. They were playing, and I had 500 programs I had to sell or was given to me to sell, and I sold all 500. And just do the math, they were $30 each. I made $1,500. And after I did that, I was like, you know what? I can do this. I love selling and I love marketing. And I obviously love that. I've really never even listened to them. But after that, I love the New Kids on the Block because they made me a lot of money. So you asked me about leadership, in terms of how I found my role, that's how I found my way into sales and marketing. And if I could say briefly one thing about working for three of the largest companies out there in marketing and sales, which would be Coke, Procter & Gamble, and Revlon, is I think they put an intentional amount of time on hiring the right people. And what I mean by that is if you're bringing on incredibly talented people into a group, birds of a feather flock together. And at the end of the day, when you bring that on there, the whole team becomes even better. And I'll never forget this one moment. And I do believe that took place across all of those different companies. But I remember when I first started my job at Procter Gamble, they had a new hire conference. And at this new hire conference, the leader of the section, the director, started asking team about 300 new hires in the company. Everyone that's been a valedictorian, please stand up. Everyone that's been a homecoming king, stand up. Homecoming queen, stand up. If you had perfect score on the SAT, stand up. And they just continue to go down these incredible, what I'll call top tier. Were you an NCAA athlete? Please stand up. And at the end of the day, everything they listed was at the top skill set, or call it element, of what you could accomplish. And after everyone in the room was standing and nothing was said that was, call it B list, it was all A list accomplishments, except for maybe homecoming king. That was the only way I got in. But the biggest thing is, they said it is more difficult to get a job at Procter & Gamble than it is to be accepted into Harvard University. So pat yourselves on the back. Welcome to P&G. And I think when you saw that group of people, you're like, wow, this is pure talent. And I'll never forget that moment. That was a long time ago, 30 years ago. And it still sticks with me today, of hiring the right team and getting the right people in place was such an incredible leadership initiative that Coke, Procter, and Revlon took a part of doing. And that's probably why you still know all three of those brand names.
It's absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think what's so interesting is that as we go along our career path, if you will, there's so many life lessons that we could learn along the way. Whether it's during different companies, maybe they're even like short stints when it comes to a role. But there's so much that we could learn along the way, and that's so interesting because when I was reading about your background, you would end up kind of pivoting into the direction of healthcare. And so I'm curious, like, what particularly sparked that pivot? Was it in a person, just in a conversation that like kind of pulled you in that direction? What exactly was that influence that would guide you?
The big thing is, I can always tell this to everyone I'm meeting. I've had 51 years of psychiatric experience. My father was a psychiatrist. So as you can imagine, until I was 18, I was getting a psych eval every day. So, and then I got to go to college. There's my freedom. But when you start a life of being raised in healthcare, you're very comfortable to it. Now, of course, my career went a different direction, different consumer product good companies. But where I made the exact pivot to go from consumer goods at Revlon when I was a global marketing director, and then jumping into CEO role of Psychiatric Medical Care, was family. And I think two parts of the family. Number one, I got married. I was getting ready to have a child. And I knew that New York City was not where I know a lot of people love to raise children in New York City. But for me, growing up in Knoxville, Tennessee, I needed a little bit of space from that crying baby. And I knew that New York would kind of put me in a tiny, one bedroom apartment with Screamathon. So I then decided to begin to look for new roles. And at the same time, this company, Psychiatric Medical Care, of which only had 5 employees and was losing $500,000 a year, it was in bankruptcy. And my dad had founded it, started it, and he had passion and care all over it. But the financials and the team he had on board to do it were not the right folks on the bus. And I remember calling him because my mom was upset, company's losing money. And I said, Dad, you've got to close this down. You're the chairman of psychiatry at the University of Tennessee, a big role. This is also someone who went on to become an author of the DSM-5. I mean, a behavioral health manual. He's a patriarch in the industry, and he's losing all of his money on this company, Psychiatric Medical Care. And I remember calling and saying, Dad, you need to close this down. I mean, focus on just the academics. And he said, Son, I'm not closing anything. I said, why? He goes, who's going to take care of my patients? And when you think through that statement, you immediately have to pause, because you can tell here's an individual literally going potentially into bankruptcy, building something he loves, he's so passionate about, but the financials and the team and the other ones, he obviously doesn't have time for, because he's running an academic institution. And I think, from that point, when I heard that, it struck me. And here I am looking for big time roles with ConAgra Foods. I almost became the chief marketing officer of Kind Bars with Daniel Levinsky, who he and I got along great. And that was, he's now a Shark Tank host. And I was excited about that opportunity. But when Dad said those words, it began to think of, wow, this is something big. This is bigger. And I basically went to my wife and said, hey, I'm about, really about to do something crazy. And you probably could just heard the ABBA song, "Take a Chance on Me." And she did. And she said, "You got 2 years to either break even, close it, or make it work." And I jumped in full force into psychiatric medical care. And obviously, over 15 years, the company has done remarkably well and saved a lot of lives.
First off, I just want to say I appreciate your humor. I really do. Just like those singing sessions that just kind of like peep in right there. I do.
Sorry for all your listeners. Sorry, because I know my voice isn't great. Dolly Parton told me herself that I should stick to my career as a toilet paper salesman when I was working at Procter Gamble. That's a true story. That is a true story. I was trying to become a singer. I did. My uncles founded her career, the Bailey brothers. And I was given permission to, get a letter to her and my music. And when all of that got to Dolly Parton, I got this beautiful letter back, of which I framed, by the way, because it has Dolly on it, her stationery, and a beautiful letter that said, "Oh my, aren't you wonderful?" Just so Dolly. And at the very end, it said, "But I've got nothing for you, sweetheart. But just keep loving what you're doing, and I'm sure things are going to work out just fine." I.e., don't quit your day job, young man. So Dolly, thank you. I listened to you. I didn't quit my day job, but I got this job. Game show host seems to be a good fit.
It's fantastic. I do. Like, I really appreciate good humor today. Like, it really is. There's nothing like it. So, JR, thank you for that. Where I wanted to take this conversation was obviously spending a lot of time in career, but maybe going into the direction of hosting your own podcast, which is so incredibly exciting. So, what particularly led you into that direction? And quite frankly, like, how do you juggle everything that you're doing right now?
Well, I could start out I'm on the board of directors. So I'm no longer the CEO of Psychiatric Medical Care. So that's one big piece of it there, because I helped lead the organization for over 15 years. And then we brought on an incredibly accomplished, successful individual to come and lead the organization going forward. So that's one big piece. And I still remain on board. I'm obviously going to different speaking engagements, which is a blast. And that gives me the capacity. So how did all this happen? Well, a little bit of it, if you have the camera there, I don't know if it gives a wide tour of all the background here, but it really happened in '98 with the big Orange Tux moment, which you all can read about. And you may have already read about the story of where, long story short, University of Tennessee was called a little bit like trailer trash. They were basically made fun of a little bit by ESPN. Technically, we were not called trailer trash. We were just called that we were in a trailer park frenzy, upset about Peyton Manning not winning the Heisman Trophy Award. And I then remember going to my dad and saying, "Dad, they called us trailer trash. What do we need to do as Tennessee fans to show we're classy?" I remember my dad looking at me and saying, "Son, I'm not sure, but James Bond everyone seems to think he's classy and he's always wearing a tuxedo." I was like, "Dad, you're genius. I need to go get a tux." So I went out, I bought a white tuxedo. I got 16 magic markers, and there was a reason for 16, because Peyton Manning was not on that championship team, but I wanted him to be there because I knew I was going to be going to the title game in this orange and white tux. So I colored all the lapels. I dyed the top hat, every little piece of it. Everything was ready to go. The big orange tux was created, all done by hand, and showed up at that national championship game. And if you read the article with ESPN, you can go through all the different, it was basically like stop gates at like the irrigation canal or like on the river, where you go into one portage area, you get portage, just different segments kept occurring until ultimately I was on the field, and game day invited me on the field, and I was on the field. The game day crew was far left, and security guard walked up to me, and I was now by myself on the middle of the end zone and said, "Excuse me, sir, who are you?" I said, "I'm J.R. Greene. I'm the big Orange Tux guy. I'm here to show that Tennessee has class." And he looked me up and down and says, "Wait, son, are you here to lead the team on the field to the national title?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he goes, "Son, lead us to a title." And at that moment in time, that one decision, that one moment, I put my hand on top of the hat, my number one, and I led the University of Tennessee onto the field, and we won the national title.
Yes.
And Courtney, after winning that title and that little story, this was so long ago, nobody knew. There was no social media. There was no swiping. It was pretty much a story only close people and other people knew. A lot of people knew about it, but it was never really publicized. I'm also too old. I don't know how to do social media. So it was like just a fun story to tell at, dinner parties. And then all of a sudden, I got a call from ESPN and Chris Lowe, who's an author. And he said he was doing a 25-year anniversary of the story of Tennessee making the title, and he wanted to know more about this Bigfoot story of this random guy finding their way down on the field and then leading the team on the field and then the team winning. And after I told him the story, he investigated, reported it, and he did an amazing article. And you can now read it on ESPN. If you just type in ESPN tuxedo, it'll pop, or ESPN Tux, the first story. I think it was called College Football's Ultimate Party Crasher. I got the title, and at the point, millions and millions of people read this article. And then after that, fast forward a little bit of time, I had a chance to be on the ESPN. I had a chance to be on SEC Nation, got a chance to lead Rocky Top, game day pick. I let Paul Feinbaum wear the tux. Ultimately, that tux no longer fits me. You got to remember, I was like a size 30 when I was in business school, 21. I'm now 38. So those don't jive. So I look like just a balloon figure in that outfit, and it just doesn't jive. So the tuxedo is now permanently housed at the Graduate Hotel in Knoxville, a beautiful stand that they've got created. It's awesome. And what led to Superfan Diaries was I was able to meet some other folks in the entertainment sports industry, and they had an idea around a sports show around fans, and they call it the positivity or the fun love of super fans. And they said, you're a super fan. I said, you are correct. Yes, I am. I am a super fan. And they said, well, we need a super fan to host this show. And we went through it. And next thing you know, Pantheon Media, who produces the show, decided to bring the show on board and me as the host. And now we're 50 plus shows in, and it's a blast getting to meet all these super fans.
That's absolutely incredible. And a big congratulations on beginning the podcast because it really is. I think it's certainly a journey. We were speaking about it right before the podcast episode started recording, but how for me, you start out as like a one-man band
Oh,
and
yeah.
we were just talking about your studio. And so it really is, it's a process. And so just a big congratulations on that. And my question for you is, when you started this podcast, like you said, 50 plus episodes, and what is something that you have been able to learn about just how powerful sports fandom is, like with identity, with the passion of the fans and their teams, like just some large lessons, what you've learned.
Number one, I'll tell you, and I believe at some point I'll have a TED talk prepared. I just have to get the data. I do believe that super fans are more mentally healthy than the rest of us. And I know at the beginning of that, when you see a lot of these super fans and you see the powerful nature in their outfits and other pieces of what they're doing, it can startle you, it can get you excited. But at the end of the day, every individual I have interviewed, whether they're a super fan dressing up or they're a super fan of a certain team and they may have other careers, when you talk about their team, every one of them, even the Cleveland Browns, get excited about their team and the passion toward it. So what I've learned is that being a fan and having that belongingness, there's something there. I don't have the stats, I don't have the data yet, but I do believe that in interviewing so many of these individuals that they get on the show. And Courtney, you think about positivity of your, call it the foundation of your show. That's what they bring. I mean, these people are fired up. I mean, they bring on their full makeup, their outfit, their passion, the cheering, and you can feel, you feel good. My own mental health improves on every single show. Now it's difficult. I've got to prep for the show. I've got to go through all those things, and that's time, that's effort, and that can be stressful because you want to do a really good job because you're the most valuable thing on earth is time, and I'm taking someone's time, and they're coming on my show to celebrate themselves, what they've done for their team. A lot of times charitable organizations that they're supporting because they've become celebrities, in their marketplace. These people are known and they love to give back. And I think the biggest thing that I have learned from interviewing so many of them is the passion they have to help support their own local fans. I mean, some of these people will spend 6 hours preparing with an outfit before they go to the game because they know highlight and just the smiles that it brings children and the parents to be able to take a picture with that super fan. I mean, so it's a beautiful thing, and I love what I'm doing. It's just a lot of fun, and getting to meet these people it raises me up as well.
That's incredible. And, I think when we kind of open up the lens, how powerful sport could be when it comes to, as you had mentioned, that sense of belonging, that sense of community, like rallying around a team. And even I always speak about it, just like even in class with students, but how there's so many powerful memories that can maybe be built in childhood. Like just like your background, doing some research. I mean, it really does like sharing those beautiful memories in childhood of going to whether it is a collegiate game or professional game, but you really do, you hold on to that. And I think another thing that I always bring up, because it's happened to me like so many times, but say you are at a football game and your team wins and you're walking out of the stadium, but you're able to high five strangers. Literally, they are
Yes,
strangers.
absolutely.
It's like a big family. So, JR, thank you so much for just sharing the power of sport and how it really can draw us and pull us together, you
Well,
know?
it's the sense of belonging. I know that Dr. Daniel Wan from Murray State University, he's actually the foremost expert because he's doing real data studies, focus groups, et cetera. I don't know about his controls and every other piece, but he's comparing the super fans or fans of a team versus not. And some of his early research is pretty remarkable that individuals that are a part of a team and have passion toward sports teams, and in general, I believe that's his premise, and that's the hypothesis is really focused on sporting. But those individuals have far less depression impact than non-super fans. And you would think, wait a minute, again, going back to the Cleveland Browns or Tennessee Titans, that you're depressed, you're sad, you're not winning. And at the end of the day, but you're not winning as a part of a group. So as he basically places in his studies is that it's the sense of belonging. As human beings, as creatures, we want the sense to belong. Go back all the way to caveman times. I mean, we've been doing this for centuries as human beings, gladiator time. So the sense of belonging is what really is the power. And then ultimately, that's what's helping to help mental health, even in a time of loss. You still have that belonging to where I can go to China and I can walk around China, which I've done. Wear a Tennessee hat. Somebody will say, "Go Vols," and you're like, "Yeah," and it makes you feel good for that moment. And I think that fandom is just a beautiful part of mental health. And I'm thrilled that all of these pieces have come together in my life, where a background in mental health and now the superfan world, and it does tie together.
It's literally that's exactly where I was going to go is pulling together your extensive background in healthcare, and then alongside now that you are really taking a deep dive into sports, obviously with the podcast, just with your whole background, and obviously the book. I do want to talk about the book coming up. Um but what are those, it could be one, it could be many, but just those largest parallels that even looking at the world we live in today, that maybe we could begin to focus on and to draw upon of how we just pull people together. It's not about like agreeing with
Yep.
everybody, but I think there has to be something there that we could, pull together from. So I'm just curious about your
Well,
thoughts.
if you think about it, I cannot remember which. I think it was Jesse Jackson that even said the greatest moment of a church service is going to a football game. Meaning that in one moment, when you go to the University of Tennessee, just to pick on them right now, or we'll go to Michigan. Let's go to Michigan, largest stadium in the world. So if you go to Michigan, you got 100, I think, and 10,000 people all surrounded in one moment, in one time for one team. You may have like 5,000 Ohio State fans there if they're playing Ohio State. But the reality is you're going to be having the entire group solidify, unified, totally unified, to be able to sing the chant, the fight song, and it's remarkable because you don't even there's no church in the world that can find that level of different people. No one cares about your ethnicity. No one cares about your socioeconomic status. No one cares about if you're a man or a woman. It does not matter. At the end of the day, when you put that and you put your Michigan hat on, your Wolverine hat, your Ohio State fan, USC, Texas A&M, you name it, you're part of a team and everyone loves you. I mean, that's why if you go back in history and look at just the situation of where African Americans were going through to get back into sport was critically important to helping, I believe, equal rights. I mean, it was part of the world we came from, and sport is something where no matter who's out on the field or your team, you're unified. You are part of something that's bigger than yourself. And there's no doubt that when you watch a pick six happen, holy cow, if you're a fan of that team, to watch an entire 100,000 people roar, and the goosebumps you feel, that's priceless.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And, just holding on to sport and to the University of Tennessee. This is so interesting. So in 2024, you decided to partner with the University of Tennessee Press to produce their first children's book.
Yes.
And what's so exciting, JR, this is incredible, but it's literally going to be released here July
Yes.
2026. And so I just want you to enlighten our listeners. If
Hence
you
the
could,
shirt, by the way, you can see it. My Magic Tux. I mean, I got the early uniform here because I'm going to. There's a baseball event we're doing, so I mean, I'm already ahead of the game. We've got to like prep now to get ready for July 28th.
absolutely fantastic. And thank you for dressing up. That's perfect.
I'm all in.
Thank you so much, JR. And when you reflect upon just this process, if you could share the process, but what is maybe that core theme that children will be able to take away from this particular book, My Magic Tux?
I think it goes right to the title. It's a big orange story about courage and confidence. And if you think through the first question you asked, which is the whole process, how in the world did this happen? Well, if we go back to the 98 situation and the book getting released, all of a sudden, I was asked to be a part of one of the UT tailgates. And I can't remember which one. I'm so sorry for those who hosted it, but it was one of the University of Tennessee, maybe the Tennessee Fund or Club tailgate. And I was asked to be able to come and invited to come and wear the tux after the story was released and take pictures with people, right? Because they have the big board up there and I was there. And so it was very humbling. A lot of people want to take a picture with this guy who got on this college football ultimate party crasher article in ESPN. And fortunately, as these individuals were walking up, I got to meet all sorts of beautiful, wonderful Tennessee fans, but one in particular struck me. And she struck me because when she walked up to me, she said something I never would have expected. She said, JR, I want you to know after that article came out, I read it and I cut a picture of you that's holding up the national championship with you in that big orange tux. And I've put it on the front of my door in my elementary school classroom. And the reason I do it is I want every child to see your picture and I want to tell them the story of courage and confidence can help you accomplish anything. And she told me this and I was like, whoa. And this is an elementary school teacher. I don't know her name. And she thought of, and immediately I took back from that of, wow, this is a motivational potential. Even though it's a story, and if you read the title, it's like immediately when you first hear the words party crasher, you're thinking of a streaker. You're thinking of something pretty negative. But when you read the article, you'll see that I didn't do anything that was, call it negative. I literally got myself into positions. I did have the courage and confidence to keep being put into different positions. And then ultimately, great things happen. And that story is very similar to what we look at our own lives with our own children and then our own lives when we're trying to find courage and confidence. And I think the biggest method, and call it the story, is I felt there was an idea potentially to do a children's book. And I began to talk to some other people and they said, yes, my gosh. And then just pieces came together about a story, not just about the story, but it's about a younger child going through this event, but he finds a magic tux. And the magic tux is what helps give him the courage and confidence to go through, be on the stage with the singers. He has a panic attack when he's on stage, which is a true story. And then the band sings Rocky Top. He gets in the stadium without having his ticket torn because he just walks in. And they assumed he's a part of, with the team. And next thing you know, the night before I met Kirk Herbstreit at a event. I asked him if I show up in the big orange tux, will he put me on the game day? He said yes. So I see Kirk Herbstreit. He puts me on game day. And then the game day crew afterwards sees my tux and they say, wow, that took a lot of guts. That took a lot of courage and confidence to be on the show. Would you like to come down on the field with us? So I technically didn't really sneak onto or party crash. ESPN invited me to walk down on the field with them. And then after that, they did walk away. And then a gentleman asked me, are you here to lead the team on the field? Two answers. One is yes, and become a part of a team that is so special, or no, and go to jail. So the answer was going to be yes. The story, though, takes place of this child wearing this tuxedo. And then ultimately, at the very end of that moment, after he leads the team on the field, he says, I couldn't do this without you, Magic Tux. And the Magic Tux says, no, it was you all along. And the biggest part about this is we think as a mental health leader with multiple adolescent IOP, PHP programs now across the state of Tennessee, and we'll be expanding to other states. The biggest thing I've learned, and I see across children right now, is that as a parent, I get to see that we care so much about who's the most athletic child in the class, who are those individuals, and who are the smartest. So we really have those two beacons of what we're all trying to attain for our children. But I began to say, what about the child that's the most courageous or the most confident? What about that child that walks up to a bully and asks them to stop picking on another child? Because that passion, that courage and confidence to do that, that is what I want to reward. Because that child that has the courage and confidence to do that is going to aspire to so much in life that I know I would be proud as a parent. And I feel that this book is a way of me telling a fun story about me, but it also illustrates my own courage and confidence and what I ended up accomplishing in life. And that book's a part of it. And I think that the bigger story that UT is now doing, which is wonderful, is the proceeds, 100% of all the proceeds go back to the University of Tennessee libraries for literacy. And we're also beginning to start a new foundation organization focused on courage and confidence in children. And we're still working out the details of this new charitable organization, but it will be with UT and tapping into what I just, described around courage and confidence and rewarding that behavior and those actions to excite children about those two things.
JR, that gave me absolute chills because when I think about even kind of expanding the lens, but the impact of social media, like when you were speaking about that, when you talk about the confidence and the courage to maybe try something new as in even an early adolescent, late childhood. But when I was reading when it first came out, but Jonathan Haidt's book, Anxious Generation.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, I mean, wow. Like, I don't have a psychology background whatsoever, but it opened up my eyes when he speaks about this idea of the rewiring of childhood and play based versus phone based. And so when you were just telling me that, I think that there's so much more that we could recognize. Like you said, it's not chasing the scholarship. It's not just about, the straight A plus. I mean, now it's so interesting. I talk to students, they've taken, I can't even like imagine how many AP classes. They have a 5.0 now. I didn't even know you could get that.
Or the travel league baseball teams, Courtney. I mean, they've spent tens of thousands of dollars, in the situation to help your child to become an NCAA athlete. And what is it? Less than 3% across the country even make an NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3 team.
And I think that's such a good point to really amplify because you just because you do not make a collegiate team does not mean that you can't move forward in other avenues or that you're not quote successful. And I like what you're doing with rewriting the narrative for children to aim for and more about the values. I think 100% the focus on development of values again, like what
Yep.
are the values that you stand for and how that could really and at the end result, if you will, really propel you to have that confidence, like you said, to stand up to somebody if it is bullying, to try something new, something that's always been on your heart.
Exactly. Yep.
I
Try
think that
something new. It's so hard in a swipe world. And so I think that's where my hope is this is a journey. I mean, we're going to be taking with UT to start, but I hope that other fan bases, become a part of this and support the book, knowing that we're going to be going back. We're going to be giving back to the courage and confidence of opening those new doors because it's tough. And by the way, selfishly, it's not just for children. There are adults that are very scared to take a plunge and to take any type of risk, even CEOs of large corporations. I know you know who you are. I know you. And it's difficult to take risk. It's so difficult and it's scary. And I think it all comes back to understanding and rewarding and celebrating that courage and confidence. Because we all have it. We all do. And sometimes we just need a little piece out there to help us, a super fan, so to speak. Someone that believes in what we're doing, mentors, other individuals to help us move to the next level because they're out there. Super fans aren't just super fans of the teams; they're also super fans of you, They're super fans of the company. They're super fans of the hospital. So, there's a lot of super fans out.
That is absolutely fantastic. And I love that you, like you said, you expand it out. It's not necessarily for children or even young adolescents,
And not
but
just for Tennessee fans. That's right. This is for everybody. Just happened to be a Tennessee fan who pulled it off.
that's amazing. Well, and I do have to bring this up. This is a little side tangent.
Yeah.
But this is really interesting. So JR, I have been at 3 different universities, undergrad at University of Florida. Okay. I
You're a
come
Gator.
home,
I know. I
but
know.
check this out. So so then I come back home to Orlando. I end
Yep.
up going to the University of Central Florida, but now I teach as an adjunct professor at Florida State University, where that's the that's the team, of course, in 1998 that you won
Yes.
against. So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to bring this up.
You should. I mean, Tennessee fans we love Florida State. We love it. We have nothing. There's 2 big games immediately. When you say Florida State, most ball fans go to 98 and we go to the baseball game that we were losing in the World Series that we won. The year we won the College World Series, Florida State was beating us. And then I think in the 9th or 10th inning, we came back and won the game. So people remember Florida State. And I think ball fans really like Florida State.
I was just gonna say too, and when we were talking about just like the culture behind these teams, but I could remember the very first time my husband took me to an FSU football game, and
Yes.
I'm a fair fan. I just want to throw that out, even being a gayer. But I remember standing and just watching. I mean, how many people just screaming, roaring, and Renegade is running out. I get chills. I literally get chills
You
thinking
do.
about it. And it is the most powerful thing. And like I said, when you're there for the first time to witness that, and people dressed up, like you said, I mean, people do so much for their team. It's really something powerful that when
Na, 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 na. I mean, like every team has that. And that what I just did for Florida State, they immediately all in accord. I mean, like the passion is beautifully there, and I think that's the part that I love.
well, it's the passion and it's the energy. Like I said,
Except
I
for
mean,
maybe the Gators. I don't think I can't love the
you
Gators.
can't do it.
I can't do it. But I love everybody else.
Oh man, that is fantastic. Yeah, not to go off on that tangent, but I had to mention that during this podcast.
Yep.
But no, but really pulling it back to obviously we were speaking about the book, but I do like, just while you're here, I would love to ask you some just general questions
Yes.
about, like, when we do talk about that courage and confidence, but maybe if there's either individuals who were thinking about starting a company, or perhaps they're just kind of just started, if you will,
Yep.
what is some advice that you could provide entrepreneurs?
Out of the gates, I think the biggest thing, there's so many billions of self-written and superstar entrepreneurs out there that have written great stories around how to become a successful entrepreneur. And there's just so much. I would just be repetitive to a lot of what they've said. The only thing I believe, what I've seen, at least in my life, and what I've seen of other highly successful entrepreneurs that I've gotten to know and become friends with, the same level of passion it takes to become a collegiate, and i.e., I hate to say it, even more so, a professional athlete. So the same level of practicing, prep, what I'll call PT, setup, food, diet, all the elements you have to do to become a Titan or any player or in the NBA, any professional sport, is the same level of time, energy, and commitment you'd have to do to build an organization. It's synonymous. And if you jump into entrepreneurship and feel that it will happen quickly, or you feel your idea is genius and it's just going to take off, it won't. You're trying to become a professional athlete, but a professional athlete in business. And I believe that the first thing that any entrepreneur needs to understand is that they love the idea. No matter how much they love the idea, they have to be ready to put the same level of effort as a professional athlete. And if they have that idea and they go into it, then at least you're setting the stage of knowing the passion that's going to be needed and the level of effort to become a successful entrepreneur.
That is so true. And I love how you mention even just that the patience, if you will, like it's not overnight success because I don't know why, but it feels it's not like anybody's particularly says it necessarily, but this sense of instant gratification that you're going to
Yeah.
achieve success overnight. And when you don't, it's like how are you able to hold on to that why? Like why did you start whatever you started? But how that could really pull you through those challenging times, those tough times, because you're right. I do feel that you'll obtain that highest level of satisfaction when you have done something for months, for years, and you could probably attest to that with psychiatric medical care. I
Yeah.
mean, you know what I mean. So just that
We've
sense
been
of
around a quarter of a century.
yeah, well, and that's what I mean. Like the sense of delayed gratification, how long it took, the ups and the downs of building that company. So I think that's such a good piece of advice. And JR, something what's so interesting, and I do like I try to learn about so many different whether it's sectors industries not just within my own specialty in sport but I'm so interested in healthcare right now like even on LinkedIn I have a multitude of different people within healthcare administration or just obviously medical doctors in general. But I love learning from them. And so, my question for you, with your expertise in that area, where do you see healthcare, just the healthcare industry at large, headed in the next maybe 5 to 10 years?
I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm going to be selfish again, going back to mental health. I think you're going to see even more comfort. I mean, I go around and when I speak to people and I mention that mental health, I immediately get questions sometimes around, well, here's the medication I'm taking. And I'm like, I'm not a doctor. I'm an administrator. But the reality is the comfort of mental health, the destigmatization of behavioral health is so greatly changed. I mean, I don't think I've even heard the word shrink in years. And that's all I was called. I was called a shrink's kid, right? And so I was picked on as, hey, that's the shrink's kid, right? So, I mean, like when you're in the psychiatry or mental health world, you sometimes can be immediately pigeonholed. And I think that now more and more people, and you think about just the people I've interviewed, I've had people disclose publicly around overcoming the depression, overcoming the anxiety, overcoming it, managing their autism. I mean, it's awesome how so many people are feeling more comfortable mentioning and letting behavioral health become a part of their conversation. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, it's only going to exponentially get better. And I feel that is better for all of us. I mean, I would love to see in the next 5 to 10 years, similar to how primary care physician, we all have to go one time a year and get blood work done. Oh, it's grueling. You got to fast. It's just, it's all this extra work to get ready just to get blood work and be told, yes, I know I'm pre-diabetic. I've been pre-diabetic for 15 years. But the big thing is, what if insurance agencies began to require their customers, their consumers, that they have to see one therapist for 45 minutes, one time a year? That's all. I get it. Some people will think it's probably more difficult than doing blood work and fasting. But if you were required to do that, the health it would bring America, I think would be amazing.
So true. Because what's interesting when you talk about just the concept of mental health, how even in sport, like early 2000s, we did not, at least I don't want to say we, but more so myself, like I
Yeah.
never remember even hearing anybody talk about mental health. I didn't even
Gosh, no, if you talked about mental health, you had a real problem.
yes.
Yeah.
And so just what you're saying, like allowing that stigma to like go to the wayside and people are, a lot of professional athletes have come out as I mean, Simone Biles,
You bet.
I mean, the list goes on, Kevin Love, everybody. But I think that's something that, like you said, it's very interesting. The shift over the years is to just verbalizing it in public, whether it is on a podcast or an interview. So that's great to hear. And JR, this has been an amazing podcast episode. The energy, the passion. So I
Got to
would
bring the positivity. That's your core. Positivity, Courtney. Positivity.
That's right, JR. But I would love for you to end with a positive message or a positive quote for our community.
Well, I'm going to give you the one we end our show with, which is if you make one person smile, you've had a great day. Make them laugh even better.
True. And how has that resonated in your life, just being in sport, like I said, with sports fandom and hosting that podcast?
I mean, the great news is when you're talking to super fans, they're ready to sing. I mean, they're ready to go. So, I mean, they show up smiling. I don't think I've ever had anyone on my show that showed up moribund or like just dry. I mean, like they're ready to go. And my job is to get them an introduction, get them fired up. But, I look at it, at least personally for me, the one thing I love most, Courtney, is when I go to drive-throughs. Yes, I'm the guy. I love Taco Bell. Okay. I love McDonald's. I can't stop. And I know healthy sport, that doesn't go right, right? If you want to be a professional athlete, you should not be going to Taco Bell. But I'm not a professional athlete. I'm a game show host. And so when you're taking on that type of role, it's okay to go to Taco Bell every now and then. But the one thing I love about Taco Bell is these individuals that are working on the other side of the counter, taking your money and giving you the food. They look at you, and it's usually so transactional. Thank you, that I make sure every time to stall. If they don't do it, they look at me and I make sure to smile. And I go, thank you. That's all I have to do. I'm not like annoying them with how's the weather or are you having a good day? I just smile at them. And when you do that, 100% of the time they smile back and then they say, thank you. And for that moment in time, I know I've made someone happy. At least I hope. And I know they've made me happy. And I drive away with a big smile on my face. Now, I didn't make them laugh because that's the best. I love laughter because it's also good for your abdominal muscles. But I think, the big thing is making folks smile and laugh, Courtney, is one of the greatest skills I think anyone can do to other people.
So true. And I really do. I think the world needs that now more so than ever. I mean, just as simple as making somebody smile. I talk about it all the time, but like you said, I mean, if it is going to a store, a restaurant, drive through, whatever it is, but just taking time to appreciate that there's another human being that's whether it's a transaction of taking your money, but that, just appreciating them. And if it's asking them a question or simply a smile, but how far that could go for somebody's day. You just never know what they're going
Huge.
through. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know if I'm having a bad day and I get a simple smile from someone that just says, hey, man, or just a simple thing of, hey, I really like your tie. I'm like, well, thank you. Hey, I don't
That's
look
it.
like a slob. This is great. They like my tie.
JR, I mean, literally, that's like something I just will always remember from this podcast. There's so many things, obviously, but I really do. I appreciate such a great sense of humor. And boy, I mean, you've had me laughing like this whole entire podcast episode. When I edit, I'm going to take myself out. But I really do. I want to genuinely thank you, JR, for coming onto the podcast
You bet.
episode. I really do. I'm so grateful for just being able to talk about, career, but then also just the fun of sport and how we could just enjoy life sometimes. Like I said, there's life lessons that we learn along the way. But it's truly been a fantastic time with you, JR. Thank you so much.
Been awesome. Loved it. Courtney, thanks so much. Hope you guys all enjoy it.
Thank you.